उड़ानें निर्धारित समय पर जारी रही थी।
கன்னியாகுமரி சூப்பர் ஃபாஸ்ட் எக்ஸ்பிரஸ் 6வது பிளாட்ஃபாரத்திலிருந்து 5:15 புறப்படும்.
Indian Railways. It's been dubbed the lifeline of the nation. From its conceptualization by the British in the mid-19th century to becoming one of the world's largest railway networks, it's a system that has withstood the test of time. In a country of 1.3 billion, Indian Railways is a huge and complex entity. Spread across more than 65,000 kilometers, it ferries nearly 23 million passengers per day in over 13,000 passenger trains. It is also one of the largest employers in the world, with a workforce of nearly 1.3 million. On this Independence Day, let's track the magnificent journey of the Indian Railways.
The history of railways in India dates back to 1853.
On the 16th of April 1853, the first passenger train ran between Bombay's Boribunder, which is now called Mumbai CST, and Thane. Covering a short distance of 34 kilometers, it was operated by 3 locomotives named Sahib, Sultan and Sindh and had 14 carriages. Since then, there's been no looking back. Indian Railways have come to define and shape the country. But it started off as a byproduct of British colonial rule. Indian Railways has been called the greatest gift left by the colonial power. However, they were not built to serve the needs of local people. The railways were an instrument of control. The British needed it to move troops around quickly. The construction of the railway network was envisaged by Lord Dalhousie. It took off in earnest after the First War of Independence in 1857. Which the British refer to as the Indian Rebellion of 1857. The railways helped British imports and exports, bringing in immense economic benefits, but they also served many Indian freedom fighters. It helped mobilize people against the British Raj. Trains in British India had 4 classes: first, second, third, and fourth. A journey by train made Indians realize that they were second or third class citizens in their own country. Remember, in 1893, Gandhi was thrown off a South African train when he was traveling in the first-class whites-only compartment for refusing to give up his seat.
Just move your leg back to third class.
The railways proved to be a blessing in disguise.
We made a tryst with Chennai, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
On August 15th, 1947, India won its independence from the British. The Indian Railways played a crucial role in the independence struggle, and also in this dark side of Indian history. After 200 years in India, when the British finally left, the subcontinent was partitioned into two independent nation-states, India and Pakistan. Almost overnight, approximately 7 million Hindus and Sikhs and 7 million Muslims found themselves in the wrong country. 14 million people had to abandon their homes. It is estimated that nearly 700,000 refugees traveled by train between the 15th of August and the 8th of September in 1947 alone. The journey was cramped and fraught with danger. Both passenger and goods trains were used to meet the demand. Every inch of space that was available was utilized by desperate passengers. Trains carrying refugees were attacked by mobs en route. They arrived full of corpses. These were called ghost trains. It is the bloody legacy of the Indian partition. In 1950, India's rail network was about 53,596 route kilometers. The government began reorganizing the network into zones. Division was important for better administration and control. Later on, Indian Railways was divided into 17 zones and 69 divisions. To keep Indian Railways on track, annual budgets were made. Though India's first railway budget was introduced in 1924, John Mathai presented the first railway budget for independent India on the 20th of November 1947. Now let's take a look at some of the milestones that the Indian Railways achieved in the past 75 years. In the first few decades after independence, the railways started the process of modernization. Colonial-era locomotives were replaced with state-of-the-art trains. The 1980s saw a complete phase-out of steam locomotives. Electrification was spurred on by the 1970s energy crisis. Between 1980 and 1990, around 4,500 kilometers of track was electrified. India also got its first metro system, which opened in Calcutta in 1984. The 1980s also brought in a whole new world of computers. It was a turning point. In 1986, the Indian Railway's online passenger reservation system was introduced. It allowed customers to book and cancel tickets on any train from any terminal. 14 years later, in 1999, IRCTC, the Indian Railway Catering and Tourism Corporation, was launched. It pioneered internet-based rail ticket booking through its website, as well as from mobile phones via Wi-Fi, GPRS or SMS. On the 1st of April 2015, IRCTC created a new national record. 1,345,496 tickets were booked in a single day. The reason? A new rule came into force. Passengers were now allowed to book tickets 120 days in advance rather than 60 days. IRCTC was also listed on the National Stock Exchange in 2019. The Government of India's holding was reduced to 87%, with the remaining shares being publicly traded. In India, the experience of a train journey is unique. Perhaps some rail journeys are more beautiful than the destinations themselves, like the Konkan Railway route, which takes you through gorgeous cliffs, marshes, plateaus and hills, through the states of Maharashtra, Goa and Karnataka. It's an astounding feat of engineering. The British had contemplated and abandoned the plan as being too formidable. But Indian engineers managed to build it in 8 years. Konkan Railway was formed in 1990 as a company. The first passenger train ran on Konkan Railway tracks in March 1993. During its initial years of operations in the mountainous region, a spate of accidents took place. It prompted Konkan Railway to investigate new technologies like the Sky Bus Metro system and an anti-collision device. Today, the Konkan Railway lines span 738 kilometers. Another engineering marvel is this. The Chennai Bridge is the world's highest railway bridge. When completed, the bridge will span the Chennai River at a height of 359 meters above the river. For reference, it is 35 meters higher than the Eiffel Tower. Located in Jammu and Kashmir's Riyasi district, it is expected to open to rail traffic in December 2022. Now let's talk about some of the premium trains in India. The first one on our list is the Rajdhani Express. In English, the word means capital, just as the name suggests. Rajdhani Express is a series of trains that connects all major cities in India with the national capital. The first train in this series was introduced in 1969, which ran between New Delhi and Howrah. The name Shatabdi means centenary in Sanskrit. Introduced in 1988, the Shatabdi Express was launched to commemorate the birth centenary of Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India. Some of the other premium trains in India include the Garib Rath Express, the Toronto Express, and the Humsafar Express. Indian Railways has also introduced some semi-high-speed trains. Launched in 2016, the Gatiman Express became the fastest train in India, beating the Shatabdi Express. With an operating speed of 160 km per hour, it covers the distance between New Delhi to Agra in just 105 minutes. Among the fastest trains in India today is the self-propelled Vande Bharat Express. Operating at a speed of 160 km per hour, it is a semi-high-speed train set. Vande Bharat trains do not require an engine. Instead, they use a distributed traction power system, which gives the train higher acceleration and deceleration compared to loco-hauled trains. The train is expected to run at speeds of 220 km per hour by 2025. It's been built under the Make in India initiative. The first version of the Vande Bharat trains was launched in 2019. 400 such trains have been proposed by the Indian government. Another semi-high-speed Indian train is the Tejas Express. It is Indian Railway's first experiment with privatization. Tejas Express is run by the Indian Railway Catering and Tourism Corporation, an arm of the railways. Last year, the first station to be developed under a public-private partnership was also inaugurated. The Rani Kamalapati railway station is located in Madhya Pradesh. To upgrade the country's railway system, the Narendra Modi-led government has laid the roadmap for long-term partnerships with the private sector. It has identified 109 busy routes across India to run 151 private trains for 35 years. It may sound like a lot, but the 151 trains represent only around 5% of total trains run in India. Indian Railways, be it trains or stations, are synonymous with hustle and bustle. They can overwhelm all your senses, but like the country, the trains too are ruled by contrasts. The Palace on Wheels is the epitome of luxury. It was launched by the Indian Railways Association with Rajasthan Tourism Development Corporation, launched in 1982. It transports you to a bygone era of old world charm and royalty. It's a draw for tourists around the world. India is now gearing up for its first ever bullet train. The Japan-backed Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail corridor is under construction. The train will be run between the two cities at a speed of 320 km per hour, covering a distance of about 500 kilometers in about 2 hours. Speeding up of trains is a constant endeavor. Indian Railway is also constructing more than 3,000 kilometers of dedicated freight corridor, which would enable freight trains to run at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour. On the 16th of April 2022, Indian Railways entered its 170th year of service. It faces many challenges, upgrading its aging infrastructure, enhancing its quality of service. The speed of transformation may need to be accelerated, but it's on track and going strong.